Hi and welcome to the Pole Shift News. Guys, as always, big thanks to those few people that are supporting this observatory and channel and website. Two of the other magnetometers went out to their locations today. We have now got America completely covered. We've also got the east coast of Australia covered. We're still looking for west coast only, guys. If you want to get involved in the project, Skype me on Gene Beards. You know, if you live in the west coast of Australia. If you live in the southern regions of Russia or the northern regions of China, give me a link on, drop me a line on Skype. Again, Gene Beards, no problem. Guys, a little bit sad to see them go, you know, and you've had these things around like I have now for, the last 8-10 weeks, and you've put so much work into them. To put them in boxes and send them out is a little bit emotional. They have required a lot of my time recently, for one reason or another. We've got 2 more to go out now. We've got 3 more to go out now, and we'll also be considering whether to send one out to the Falklands as well, just to get the southwest of the hemisphere covered with the magnetometers. And a bit sad to put them in the boxes and send them off, but at the end of the day, I know these people that have been chosen to have these are going to do their utmost to help us, and at the end of it, we're going to get more data back, which is what we want. We want to know what's going on now, focusing more on these intensities where we're targeting these magnetometers to go. We've become international, guys. Can you believe that? NASA couldn't even compete with us on the scale of budget that we've had. Nowhere near. I've said this before. You'd have to employ first of all, a manager to oversee the whole operation of design, development, and then select the locations. But even when we're at this stage now, selecting the locations, it's been relatively easy for us. There's been plenty of people in the countries where we've needed them to be, readily offer their help, and that's amazing. And like I say, NASA couldn't do that. NASA would have to pay for either, a facility to be built to house their sensors, and then, if not, pay another organisation which was closely related to the topic to do it for them. Their costs would be spiralling out of control right now into the millions easily, and we've done this on such a low budget, and with a few people supporting us, and that's amazing. And I really thank you, and I bet most of the subscribers that follow us couldn't thank those people that have chose to have these magnetometers in their homes for at least the next 12 months enough for that. So just before I change the topic, guys, we're moving forward as always on the channel, and I wanted to talk about this, what we're looking at right now. I said the other day, on Saturday I think it was, a couple of days ago, that I was going to just give you my feedback on what I thought about all this synchronicity. I'm pretty sure most of you are in the opinion that we could be in times of significant change, and we know that algorithms run on YouTube, Google, and all the other things, but what about if algorithms are running in our ordinary daily lives? What about behind the scenes of what we understand about life? There are algorithms running, and there might be something blatantly trying to tell us this. It might not be something that wants us to be completely in the dark about. Maybe there is something out there, it could be, you guys could think of it as your gods or anything. It could be anything out there, yeah. But what about if there was something out there that was, as we were led to believe, a creator and this, that, and the other? But what about if it was actually trying to get in touch with you, and could you understand if it was or not? Or maybe some of these things that we classify as coincidences, we easily write them off as coincidences because that's what they appear to be. But I looked into this. Coincidences are not like we think they are. If something has happened, it's a fact. I've looked deeply into this. If something's took place, then it was by no means an accident. And the other day I draw your attention to a few things that we've been working on this channel, and it relates to the universal equation as well. Some of you guys know how I came about that. I said, first of all, there was no way on this earth I was intelligent enough to come up with an equation such as the universal equation myself. If you go back a few videos, you'll see we're talking about this a lot more. But there's no way I would consider myself intelligent enough to come up with that equation. For some reason on that morning, I woke up, I sort of like had a vague understanding of it, I wrote it down, and then over the next week or two, I realised its full potential. And, I've made a terrible job of, trying to show people its brilliance from that point on. I never feel like I do it justice, but, guys, I had a moment of, synchronicity myself the other day when I was trying to, bust the problem of this programming, with regards to the idea on that chip that we've got, the new ones. And as a result of that, I came across this grid, hexadecimals, binary code, and, I also looked at my patrons amount and the amount of money that we'd raised on the patron channel. And the amount was 1001, if you remember. And if you look at this grid that we're looking at now, on the denary, which is our numbering system, you can see that it's a 9. But on the binary, it is 1001. And on the hexadecimal, it's 9 as well. But the point is, I was drawing your attention to work out yourselves, guys, is that 144, if you add simply in numerology, you add them numbers up, you get number 9. But more importantly, the amount of money that the 144 patrons had donated totaled 1001. And as you can see on this scale, not only does the 144 add up to 9, but also the binary number of that is 1001. Interesting. You might think that that's just a coincidence, but when we look at the universal equation, which is all about 9s and 0s, then the only other way we get a 0 other than any other number that we put into the system, remember that it's a binary system of numbers, we only get 9s out and 0s out in the universal equation, but the only other way we get a 0 is by such a number as 1001. It cannot be by no means just a coincidence, this. The fact that we're looking at binary code and it shows us 1001, and the fact that if we put that number into the binary universal equation, which gives us the binary numbers out, that specific number gives us a 0. So if we use the denary number or the hexadecimal, we get 9. If we use the binary, we get the 0. I think it's all there in black and white for us to understand, and we're only going to pay attention to it if we're already attuned to such things. Now, some people have told me they see a lot on the clock, 1111 or 144. It could be 244. Yeah, on the 24-hour clock, it's going to look like 1444, but you're going to see the 144. Or you might see this number on a number plate. You might see it like I did. I see this number all the time, it's 144. It's just like, for me, I don't know whether I'm attuned to looking for it now, and it stands out. It seems like a bit of a random number. If that is the case, it's just by coincidence I'm looking at this, but I seem to see it a lot. The number 144, guys, turns up in a lot of places. First of all, it turns up in our Bibles, the King James Bible. But, the number that's mentioned in there in a few places is, first of all, the 144 cubits in that city that descends from the heavens. Can you believe we're talking about a city that descends from the heavens in the Bible? It's almost like a spaceship, yeah? What else could descend from the heavens? They describe it as the bride, but, it's also a number that's mentioned again in the Bible with regards to those servants that have that sealed in their foreheads. It's 144,000 in that case, and that's made up the 12 tribes of Judah. I'm not going to mention those names, but you guys know what I'm talking about if you've studied the Bible, and by all means, I'm no theologian, but I have read that book a few times, because I also believed that there was something unique about the numbers that was being mentioned in it and nothing else really. But the significance of the 144 is extensive. For instance, we have 1,440 minutes in one given 24 hours of our day. And we could go on. Someone sent me an interesting comment on Patreon, and I applaud you to go and have a look at that, because they went into detail of how significant this is within the 24-hour period of our day. They look into the Gregorian calendar, our astronomical calendar, and over a month, how many minutes, and it all comes back to simply the number 9. So there is something unique about that number. The other thing I want to talk about is the fact that the number 9 in our numerology system or in our numerical system is unique other than any other number, and I'll just quickly show you why that reason is. So if you just look at the 9 times table, 1 times 9 is 9, obviously. 2 times 9 is 18. If you add the 1 and the 8, it becomes a 9. 3 times 9 is 27. 2 and 7 is 9 itself. And you get the picture. I don't need to go through all these, but something unique happens after the 5 times 9. 4 plus 9. 4 plus 5 is 9. But look at what happens in the next 6 times 9 times table, part of the table. We get the numbers reversed in the same order. So 45 becomes 54, it's just the reverse of that number. And then 63 here, we've got 36 above. And then 72, 27, 81, 18, and then the last number is 90. Should we even go that far? But if we do, we can see that there is in the universal equation the 9s and the 0s. So, things like what I saw the other day on Patreon, and I said it wouldn't be long before somebody else added the amount and changed the numbers for us, but regardless of that, it stayed like that for a couple of days. And it wasn't until I was trying to get the ID the programming, change the ID on the chips so that we could use the new magnetometers, that I started looking at hexadecimals and binary numbers, and it quickly dropped the penny. I realized what it was. But I wanted to show you guys that there is something more that we understand about this number 9. Now, okay, there's some of the symbols on here, so just pay no attention. I was just describing this to someone so that they had a better idea what I was talking about. But basically, I said, in the universal equation, we could have any number we wanted, and I just, for instance, allowed them to choose 5 different numbers, and I soon filtered it through the universal equation back into a 9. I said the only other way we get a different answer is by ending up with a 0, and this is the numbers that we need to have in order to get that 0. And I said, the point of all this is that, science have come up with equations for cubes, hexagons, all the shapes, and, we can come up with equations for, a branch with a certain amount of leaves at certain points on that branch. But the point is this: if you end up with a number that represents that shape, then we can put that number into the universal equation. We can either get it back to a 0 or a 9. So it's showing us that, there is a binary system that our universe is using to create. After all, there's a lot of planets, suns, and they're separated by distances, and I'm pretty sure that one day we'll work it all out and we'll understand the binary program. Maybe there is even a little bit more going on. There is probably an algorithm to the way in which it creates, and maybe that's down to a future generation to understand more than what we will at this point. We just know that there is something a little bit more now happening in our universe, and this is probably why science from even these large organisations are probably coming out and they're saying to us, Gene, well, they're not saying Gene, but they're saying, guys, or the general public, they're saying, we're living in a hologram. Well, hologram to me is written in probably a binary language. You know, it's been designed, developed, created by an intelligent source, because otherwise it wouldn't be using such equations like this. And you know, you can get some sort of peace out of it, I believe, because simply by knowing that there's something else going out there, and it's been going on for millions of years, and it's been following a pattern of creation, and we can or either that, or maths is even more powerful than the creation itself, if that's the case. You know, if this isn't really happening, then we've come up across a mathematical expression that explains what's been going on in our universe for millions of years. It could equally be that, but I don't like to think of it like that. I do believe that, you know, there was a plan, and the plan was put into action, and it's been following that plan. But the point is this, guys. You know, I show these Mandelbrot equations or patterns, and you can keep zooming in onto these Mandelbrots, and you come up with the same looking creature if you go further and further. In fact, you'll end up almost blowing your CPU up the deeper you go into these Mandelbrot equations, because they just go on and on and on into infinity. But the point is this, is that, you know, if you understand from the moment before we started to zoom into these things, the program had been written from that point, and it has only continued to the point where we stop and we say that's enough, we don't need to go any deeper into this pattern, because we can see that it's going to continue. Well, from that point on, it'd be the present, and from the point beyond that would be the future. You know, what I'm saying is that if there was a creative program many millions or trillions of years ago, you know, from the beginning, then, you know, it also had an envision of where it was going to end up. You know, if you look at the Bible and some of the things that it talks about in there, maybe, you know, it was like somebody had already seen where it was all going to go terribly wrong for us, and they're just pointing that out. Maybe they understood something else before, you know, we picked up on that. What I'm saying is, maybe, you know, whoever, if there was an intelligent source behind the Bible, I believe that there could quite easily be. You know, and I wouldn't be the only scientist to consider such a possibility, because, you know, if you do your research on some of the best scientists that have ever achieved anything, you're going to come across someone like Isaac Newton, who, because of the time period he was living in, tried to decode the Bible, believed there was something more to it. You know, he spent many of his evenings behind closed doors trying to decode the Bible. He believed there was something more to it. And for him to get to that conclusion, you've got to realise that obviously something had caught his attention. He's not going to invest his time, you know, wastefully in something. He's obviously going to invest that time because he believes there's something more. Maybe, you know, like myself, you know, like I do with all this that I share with you guys, I believe there's something more. I believe also that we are in a period of time where things are going to rapidly change for us, and I think we might be close, with the cause of this being related to the magnetic poles. And the reason why I say that is because it's a rare event. The last time it happened, 780,000 years ago, you know, nearly 750,000 years ago. It's a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, there is some negative. And I don't want to be an optimistic, a pessimistic. I don't want to have a pessimistic approach on this, but I do believe that, you know what, from what I see, we are definitely running the red light and running into the red on the, you know, the rev limiter, if you want, on your car. You know, we're fraping the engine beyond its capacity at this present time in our day, and, you know, it is only a matter of time before, you know, the tide changes for us, you know, before one of the objects in the machine, you know, cannot no longer cope with the pace at which it's running, and, you know, throws a piece, you know, maybe, you know, bends a conrod or something like that, you know, the piston comes through the roof of the valves or something, you know, it comes to a grinding halt. You know, the mechanism can no longer hold the pace, and I think that's where we are right now. And I think some of you guys know this. You know, this day and age, just to keep a roof over your head, keep some food in the cupboards, and just keep up with, you know, the demand of what is necessary for us just to take part in life has become a marathon for some of us. I know that it is for me, and I find myself running around that wheel twice as fast as what I was running around that wheel 10 years ago. This is only going to get out of control, and the way I describe it is like musical chairs. We're slowly through the changing technology having the chairs whipped away, and there's less seats for us to sit down on when the music stops. As a result, we're going to find ourselves seeing more and more of our friends, family, neighbours, without a chair, and they're going to go under when that happens. This is the gauntlet that I'm talking about. This is grand solar minimum taking effect. This is the probably coming ice age or glacial period that we're experiencing. This is the effects of our weather system as a result of a changing magnetosphere. All these things, as we've showed on this channel, are really, really taking place in our lives, guys. These events are at our door. It's just time before, we ourselves are affected by them. That's why we've set up the equipment around the world now, to keep a closer eye on what I consider the most important anomaly taking place during our lives. I think the migrating magnetic pole is the major player in planetary mechanics, at least. This is the thing, the mechanism which affects everything else. At the end of the day, we know that these magnetic poles are not alone in their environments. They are accompanied with Arctic climates and the rotational axis, and we are starting to see early signs of those climate regions shifting with the poles. And it could be on the cards that we also start to see the rotational axis move, although we haven't at this moment. But it's not on. It's not like this is something that cannot happen. I don't believe the way in which earthly mechanics or planetary mechanics works is that there, puts all these things in these regions by coincidence. Again, guys, we're talking about facts. They're there. They're not there by any coincidence. I do believe that they serve each other. The magnetic poles, as we know, favour cooler environments. Sunspots favour cooler environments. When things start to heat up a little bit, we start to see different effects. We start to see on the sun less sunspots. When we start to see perhaps a heating of our inner core, maybe that is what's caused the pole reversals in the first place. Well, we start to see a migration. And as a result of that, will we see the climate over the new regions of where the poles become Arctic climates? I believe so, because strengthened magnetic poles are in regions where they're the coldest, guys. At the end of the day, that's just the fact. And it is also a fact that in the Arctic region, where the magnetic poles were also the rotational axis. We know we don't really want to hope for the rotational axis to shift, but if it does, and it could quite easily, if it does, it's a major event on an unprecedented scale which will take place. Thing is, we just don't know. If we start going into core samples over the Arctic, we're going to see that eventually we're going to come across regions in our history through studying the cores, but which shows that these Arctic climates weren't always Arctic climates. They were subtropical, and that means then at some point the Arctic regions on this planet were in different locations. Oh, what's to say, in our history there hasn't been equatorial regions in different locations equally, and as a result the terrain has changed because of that. What I'm talking about is if the rotational axis shifted, there would be continents that would have more land mass than they do now, and there'd be also some continents that would be completely beneath the waves. You want evidence of such things, then look no further than here in the UK. Look at the White Cliffs of Dover. These cliffs stand a good 100 feet plus above the ocean, floor, yet they are made out of chalk, which is sedimentary zooplankton and other sea creatures, which through over the years, built up sediment. But my point is this, is that now they stand up well out of the ocean. So what was it that led to the effects of this being now out of the ocean as opposed to in it? I could go on, guys, but I think this video has gone on long enough. We're shortly going to get the remaining 3 magnetometers out. I'm hoping that someone will come forward from West Australia to house one of our magnetometers, and that will conclude that will tick that box. We'll have Australia took care of. We have got now already the United States taken care of. All we need then from there on is somewhere to cover the Siberian magnetic region over the northern hemisphere, and we can do that by having someone house these in west and east, north of the border into Russia, or south below the border in China, North China. So let's see where we're going, but at the moment, guys, we're doing really well, and on the budget that we've had, we've done an absolutely amazing job. Look where we are right now. Through you guys funding this publicly, we've managed to do what we have. We've got the TriMag concentrating on the position of the poles right now, or the epicenter right now in the northern hemisphere, and we have sent out now magnetometers to America to track the intensity over Canada, and we've also sent out magnetometers now to Australia to track, which we haven't covered much of, but we hope to do more of in the future, that southern hemisphere with regards to that lurching region of intensity now making its way to the equatorial region of this planet. And guys, we wouldn't have been able to do it without people funding it. So I'm going to say what I usually do, because it is important that we keep raising money on this channel and for the observatory to continue these efforts, so that at the end of the day we can inform you guys. It is your observatory. It's a public observatory. It's not funded at all by any organisation whatsoever. So it's important that it continues to be funded, and it's important, and I know some people hate it that I keep mentioning it, but it's important for me to keep mentioning it, to keep it funded for the future. So guys, I'll say what I usually do. The links are down there if you want to support us. You can do it on PayPal or on Patreon, and I hope you found some of the contents of this video with regards to numerology and the progression of our observatory of interest, and maybe enough to make you want to support it. That's it at the end of the day. Guys, I love you all. Have a great week, and I'll catch up with you shortly. I'll say what I usually do. Bye for now.